What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. In the early light of May 2025, the unthinkable happened. Novorossiysk, Russia's glorified Black Sea sanctuary, turned into smoking ruin and a buzzing newsroom frenzy. On May 3rd, Ukraine unleashed a synchronized barrage of long-range Neptune missiles, Turkish-made Bayraktar TB2 drones, and drone bows that slipped beneath radar screens like underwater phantoms. Civilians woke up to deafening blasts and shattered glass cutting through dawn's calm. Dozens of apartment buildings, once symbols of coastal stability, became skeletons of concrete and rebar. But the real mic drop came when Z-bloggers and propagandists, usually eager to spin victory out of literally thin air, you know they are very proficient in doing this, well, they blurted out that a drone boat had clipped the wing of Sukhoi Su-30 fighter jet, forcing both pilots to eject and land down in the harbor. Sailors, trained to march and hoist flags, not to remove jet's debris from the sea, scrambled in rubber lifeboats to fish them out. That single clip circulated on every platform, from state TV to rebellious Telegram channels, and blew apart the Kremlin's blueprint of invincibility. How did one meticulously planned strike crack the iron dome of Russian pride? Why did it take this brazen breach of a safe port to crack the propagandists' code? And how the narrative of even the most loyal and trustworthy Z reporters changed after the attack? Let's talk about all of this in today's video. Novorossiysk docks were once the beating heart of southern Russia trade network. Grain silos brimming with harvest, tankers loaded with oil, naval vessels gliding to berth under the watchful eye of pedestrians. Locals boasted that while Sevastopol had fallen under sanctions and scrutiny, Novorossiysk remained inviolate, its bulk carriers too crucial to touch. Then, at 3:17 a.m., alarms cut through patrol beats as Neptunes carved trails across the sky. Within minutes, drones lurched overhead like swarms of hornets, lighting up radar installations with precision strikes. And at the waterline, drone boats sailed beneath patrols to slam into moored corvettes. It was not just a tactical marvel, it was a statement that every inlet, harbor and pier was now within Ukrainian reach. Imagine this, Mrs. Petrova, 68 years old, who had lived her whole life 2 blocks away from the harbor, as she drowsily approaches to her window, opens the curtains, and stares at the scaffolds bent in on themselves, like discarded paper clips. Her neighbor, a steel worker named Igor, emerged from a cratered basement parking lot, clutching his hat and whiskers twitching in terror. This was not a sideshow on CNN, it was the reality. Harbor cranes, silent and immobile, looked like casualties of some nightmare horror. Local officials, once boasting that the fleet's withdrawal to Novorossiysk guaranteed safety, scrambled to spin the story, and they said minimal damage, only 5 wounded, all stable, and of course their favorite, everything is under control. But hospitals told a very different story. Shell-shocked people, PTSD-flaring in veterans who thought they have finally left the front lines, shattered families waking to screams instead of seagulls. And then there is the Su-30 fighter jet incident. A fighter jet is obviously no fishing boat, it is a multi-million-dollar instrument of air superiority, designed to rule the skies. And yet, here it was, grazing a drone boat's bow like a toddler knocking over Lego towers. Both pilots ejected into icy water, fighting not just the enemy fire, but the awfulness of betrayal by their beloved, revered fleet. The naval brass had to swallow their pride, admitting that a hostile surface drone managed to outsmart them. In the war defined by heavy armor and massed artillery, a little boat with a simple GoPro camera dealt the final blow. Imagine this. If Novorossiysk with its steel bulkheads and electronic defenses could bleed, what port or palace place is truly untouchable? When dockyards tremble under assault, every map, every battle plan, and every swaggering general is forced to rethink what safe now truly means. And let's not forget the Z-bloggers, reporters, and propagandists. Until that very moment, they were able to somehow spin the narrative and facts to make horrible things look even advantageous, believe it or not. Well, not this time. For some, it became the breaking point when they literally said, well guys, that's enough, I cannot do it anymore. There is absolutely no way I can present it to my audience as another victory, so I'm just going to be honest with them all and tell them the truth. The scariest thing any person working for Kremlin could have said. Yet, well, they did it anyways. Let's talk about their reaction, and particularly one person, Alexander Sladkov, right now. Picture Alexander Sladkov, Russia's golden-voiced war correspondent, stepping onto every screen with his Kremlin smile and unshakable confidence. For more than 30 years, Sladkov has chased conflicts from everything, Chechnya's rubble to Syria's bombed-up alleys, wearing his Soviet army uniform like a veteran's badge of honor. His dispatches were lit with upbeat slogans. We pulverize enemy units. The road paver keeps steamrolling. Victory is just around the corner. His viewers felt reassured because if Sladkov said that the Russian army was advancing, those territories would end up painted red on the very next morning interactive map. He was the moral maestro, never once letting a nasty fact crush his script. Yet only mere days after Novorossiysk incident, Sladkov's Telegram channel with 850,000 subscribers took a detour into raw honesty. He confessed that he had ridden a roller coaster of denial, anger, bargaining, and finally empathy for the wounded. He admitted that Russia's coastal defenses looked mighty on podium slides, but proved completely useless and suboptimal under a real test. He confessed that drone swarms had turned the Black Sea Fleet into little more than cartoon targets in a shooting gallery during the fair, and that the sailors on deck resembled petrified bystanders rather than maritime titans. And then, in a moment that made propagandists everywhere spit out their morning tea, he sketched two options. Option number one: freeze the war into dangerous stalemate, or mobilize the entire country, chaining citizens to barracks and factories. By the way, do you get it? Sladkov, the man who once hailed every inch of captured ground as a triumph of Putin's genius, was now actively calling for an end to the bloodshed or total mobilization out of pure desperation. How tables turned. The fevered reaction was almost comic. State TV anchors scrambled to mute his posts. Kremlin mouthpieces blamed, believe it or not, technical glitches. Online, Kremlin-friendly bloggers accused Sladkov of treasonous activities, and yet the clip still went viral anyways. Hashtags like Sladkov says stop trended among both critics and wary soldiers. Chat rooms that usually buzz with cartoonish enemy stereotypes erupted in somber debate. Basically saying, if Sladkov's worn down, what hope is there for the rest of us? Some officers reportedly circulated secret cables warning that morale was evaporating faster than vodka at a May Day picnic. Sladkov's statements forced everyone to confront the gut-punch reality. This was not going according to the plan, not even close, not anymore. And insisting otherwise only deepened the crisis of faith. If a reporting veteran with 30 plus years of experience and multiple combat presences says that it is enough, well, probably it is finally really enough this time. For Kremlin, however, 30 years of dedicated work means absolutely nothing. What a surprise. Just dare to say once anything that goes against Putin's narrative and, well, that's it, you are done dealio. And so Sladkov's online presence is now being slowly and carefully wiped out by the propaganda machine. But what Kremlin forgets is that once something is on the internet, it is almost impossible to remove it. And brave ideas spread like wildfire. And so other Z-propagandists and similar people started quickly catching Sladkov's drift, changing the perception of the very loyal Putin's customer base. Let's talk about them right now. Sladkov's confession did not emerge from a vacuum. It was part of a mounting crescendo of unfiltered horror seeping through the propaganda firewall. Remember Marinka, the city of Marinka, last December? Sladkov himself walked through that Donbass town, where buildings lay smashed like matchsticks and the streets look as if a giant boot had stomped through every single corner. That footage showed a landscape more ravaged as post-atomic fallout zones, and Sladkov's usual grin sucked it to mournful grimace. And then came out Soledar, another city, where a single elderly woman wandered through skeletal houses clutching a faded family portrait. Sladkov filmed that too, voice thick as he described how an entire community vanished almost overnight. And even then, he was able to present these images as the victory of the Russian people. If Marinka and Solidar felt like cinematic set pieces, the reality on the ground was even grimmer. Russian officers were caught on camera lecturing wounded soldiers, some were even missing limbs, that they should head back to the front lines as soon as possible. In any civilized military code, the injured are shipped home, patched up and then honored, and here, in the meantime, they were treated like worn-out boots. Just polish them up a little bit, put them back on, and use them until they completely disintegrate. Reports emerged of commanders confiscating signed contracts, extorting families for payouts, and then blackmailing recruits into surrendering their bonuses. Imagine the dissonance. Officers first praising heroic sacrifice one moment and then shaking down the wounded soldier for extra rubles the next time. These stories did not need to reach prospective recruits. They only reached their cousins, roommates and friends, creating already a ripple of second thoughts that propaganda could no way control. Social media became an unexpected conduit for truth. Private channels circulated amateur videos of bunker ceilings caved in by incoming artillery, or medics scrambling without blood supplies, or even cemeteries expanding by the hour. Satellite images leaked by the Western think tanks showed entire villages razed to matchwood. Even senior war bloggers like Yuri Kotinok broke rank, posting grim scenes of bodies, limbs and the air so thick with stench that viewers even recoiled. Some even unsubscribed from his channel after being following for more than several years. Each new clip chipped away at the official narrative, exposing the rugged seam where glossy decoration met finally brutal reality. By now you would think that the regime would double down, but desperation breeds unfiltered urgency. The government's recruitment pitch, once a siren song of huge signing bonuses and debt relief, has curled into blackmail, forced enlistment and street ambushes. Military recruiters prowl train stations in Moscow and Novosibirsk, luring debtors with empty promises or dragging them off for urgent paperwork. Villages are now bled dry of eligible men. And then ultimately the state turned to city dwellers, drowning in credit card bills and mortgages that they can no longer afford. They dangled ruble handouts that never fully materialized, promising that debts would be forgiven like mirages in the desert. What is grotesque is how this collapse of trust has fueled a moral reckoning among those who once cheered every single victory. Pro-war influencers, be it Slavyovs, Karevs and Petrovskis, whatever, or their followers, have splintered now into two completely different camps. The diehards who still insist that any cost is worth a scrap of territory, but obviously under no circumstances they're the ones who should fight. Somebody else better do it. Are they cowards or what? And second, the vast majority at this point, those who grapple with already doubt. They parade their credentials, whether be it imperialists, communists, orthodox, nationalists, whatever, but their hearts wobble when asked to count the human cost. Towns like Chasiv Yar, Vovchansk, Toretsk, towns of a few thousand souls, contested at the price of hundreds of lives each, sometimes even more. And what's the payoff? I mean, it absolutely doesn't make sense, it's nothing. A chunk of land painted on a map in red can never equal a father's death, a mother's wail, or a child's orphaned stare. This is where conscience slams into ideology. Do you cling to slogans like "for the motherland," while ignoring the fields with absolutely no sign of life for decades to come? Can love for your country coexist with endorsing an enterprise that siphons off your future workforce by the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands at some point? The math is unforgiving here. Each day the war grinds on, another coffin ships out to the grieving family. Each promised bonus withheld becomes a ledger of betrayal. Each ton flattened becomes a scar on the national psyche. And every recruit forced into service under duress becomes a symbol of a state that values territory over humanity. Has Russia always been like this? Or did only one single man change the entire country? Well, there you have it, guys. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. If you wish to support my work, there are links down below. For example, my Patreon memberships, where you can see these episodes in the early access. And also, in several days in advance, you will see the Monday, thank God it's Monday podcast. So once again, the link is down below. The memberships count as literally the best way to support the channel, like this goes even without saying. Thanks so much guys for watching, and see you tomorrow.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe in ridiculous Russian propaganda.